2020-21. This is the event organized by our EU project, European Language Grid. And also this time together with its sibling project, European Language Equality. ELG platform ready for everybody, so the motto of the conference here is European Language Grid. Europe is, and you know this already by heart, I'm preaching to the choir again, Europe is a multilingual society. Multilingualism is at the heart of the European idea. We have 24 official European languages, and they all have the same status. In addition, we have regional languages, minority languages, languages of immigrants, of trade partners, languages of people who flee because of wars. And this multilingual setup creates many economic, social, and technical challenges. Just some of them. The digital single market won't be a single market at all if it's not multilingual. Instead, it would be fragmented by language borders. How can we use language technologies to enable cross-border, cross-lingual, cross-cultural communication? How can we address the fragmentation of the European language market landscape, and what about digital language quality? And many of you know that Natalie has been working on these topics, technology-enabled multilingualism, for more than 10 years now. Several European projects prepared the ground for European language grid. And with this project, we have finally been able to implement this much needed. And together with the project European Language Equality, this is the second day of the conference this week, we are developing a strategic research, innovation, and deployment agenda for digital language equality in Europe 2030. Fortunately, this topic is already on the radar of the European institutions based on the STOA report, the same name, published in early 2018, and other pieces of input. The Parliament prepared this report, which many of you know, Language Equality in the Digital Age, and this resolution includes 45 recommendations, many of which are addressed by ELG and by I'm happy to report that there's more and more traction for our topic. This is really great news. Just a few weeks ago, the Education, Youth, Culture and Sports Council of the European Union met up and put its main results into this report here. And the Council calls for the development of an ambitious digital policy for the development of language technologies. And the EU wants to take advantage of new technologies to foster multilingualism.
Another study estimated the global NLP market to be at around about $30 billion, but these numbers are already obsolete. Thanks to AI, the global market is going through the roof with an estimated size of up to $48 billion. It's okay? Okay. I was just told that we had sound problems. So apparently you can hear now online that we had sound problems and they have been fixed. So just again to recap the slide, the global market is going through the roof with an estimated size of up to, let's say, $50 billion in 2026. And I guess the numbers will keep rising in the next years. Okay, just as another quick recap, the relevance and urgency of the European language technology landscape and community and what we are doing here. Why is it relevant? We've just seen that the global market is enormous. Yeah, it's an enormous market. And we should make sure that Europe is a key player in this market. We shouldn't just leave it to the hyperscalers from the US and from Asia. The European LT community is highly fragmented still. Let's connect and share resources and continue to build a world-class community with global impact. Digital language equality. Let's enable all Europeans to participate in the digital space in their own languages and cross-cultural and cross-lingual communication. Let's enable European conversations and debates across language borders. Very important topic still for a couple of years now, democratic online discourse, free of organized disinformation campaigns and hate speech. Let's apply our technologies where they matter and where they can make a difference. And finally, let's develop and deploy language technologies for Europe, build in Europe, the famous topic of digital sovereignty. Right, so at Meta Forum, we usually have a project expo. At this hybrid event. We have an a project expo too. This time it's fully virtual, can be enjoyed in the lunch breaks. We have 26 projects and our team set up web pages with videos, other materials, and we open the expo today at 12:30 until 1:30 and tomorrow 12 until 1, and more details are available on the website. Bit of housekeeping to those joining online. This is a Zoom webinar for questions and answers. Please use the Q&A tool. Please don't use the chat window for this, and you can ask questions. The team will monitor the chat and the Q&A tool, and they will pass on questions and also try to respond to them right away. And last two slides, bird's eye view of the program. Today is devoted to ELG, European Language Grid. Tomorrow is devoted to European language equality. Very simple distinction. Today we have, right now we have a keynote speech coming up. Then we have 2 sessions on the ELG platform, one with a broad overview and then technical deep dive with the tutorial and various explanations. And also a best of ELG session, really to showcase some of, many things can be shown. Of course, we have to make a selection, that's clear, but these will be shown later on. We have a panel on language-centric AI. We have an industry session set up. And towards the end of the day, we will talk about the future of ELG. And tomorrow, similar program, but fully devoted to ELE and the results that we have so far in this project. Both of the projects will cease to exist by the end of this month. Yeah, so this is essentially the final conference of these 2 projects. So thanks very much again for your attention. Hope you enjoy the conference these 2 days. And now, before it's time for the invited keynote speech, I'd like to briefly hand over to Jan Hajic, who is coming to the stage as chair of the MetaNet Network of Excellence, to say a few words. Jan.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Hajic from Charles University in Prague and the chair of the MetaNet board. And thank you, Georg, for the introduction. As usual at Meta Forum, I would like to say a few words about the MetaNet and also something about what happened between the last Meta Forum, which was actually only half a year ago, and today. So MetaNet was founded in 2010. You have seen the slide with the past Meta Forum conferences. So it was at the very beginning. It evolved from the T4Me project, which was the first funded language technology and networking project. And since then was funded by various other projects. Now, MetaNet has members from more than there is countries in Europe with about 60 members. And sort of on the side, we have the Alliance, which has over 900 members, and you are welcome to become a member as well. Now, the Metaforum conference, as I said, was organized by various projects over the years. As Georg said, we have the 11th one, and the main goal of the conference is to connect the community, to present the projects that are or were recently active in the area of language technology and NLP, and also to present the vision for the future, and that's what we have been doing for the past 12 years. So, as I promised, what happened between last year and this year? So there are still running language technology projects, or recently ended, those that were prolonged because of the COVID pandemic, and you will see some of the results at the virtual expo. One of them you can see even now, because we are interpreting or translating what we are saying here by the Ele project, which was one of the language technology projects funded by Horizon 2020. And if you go to the website, you can see what I'm saying in many languages. As this year, it's a conference, as it was last year, where we also present the ELG project, which is still finishing, and the ELE, which will fortunately continue for another year. And we will talk more about it tomorrow, and also what we will ask you as a community to contribute for that project. One thing that I don't have on the slide, but that I'm sure that you are aware of, what happened is that Horizon 2020 sort of gradually changed into Horizon Europe. Now we have a first bunch of Horizon Europe projects approved, many more submitted. I'm happy to announce that one of the accepted project, which will start in September, hopefully, we still don't have the grant agreement, is a high performance language technology project for building very large language models for all European languages. Now, of course, we would like to see more. We would like to see an LT endeavor of a larger scale, and that's what this conference is actually about. We will tell you what ELG has achieved, what ELE is achieving and will want to achieve, and what we plan for the future. So thank you all for attending. I hope you will enjoy the conference and connect with friends here in Brussels or online with whom you would like to talk. So thank you very much, and back to Georg and the keynote. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jan. So next up is our keynote. Before I talk about the keynote and introduce the keynote speaker, there's one technical thing that the colleagues in the back need to do. They need to replace a cable. So there will be 1 minute in which this will happen. And I guess the sound will also be cut. So I need to check what is happening. So, cable replaced, but unfortunately the problem still exists. So to those joining online, the slides seem to be a bit blurry. The colleagues are trying to fix it. It wasn't the cable, unfortunately. So let's continue with the program. Next up is the invited keynote speech. The speaker is Jonas Androulis, CEO and founder of the German company Aleph Alpha. Jonas is a serial entrepreneur. He established Aleph Alpha in early 2019 in Heidelberg in Germany. He's a graduate of KIT, Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. And before Aleph Alpha, Jonas was a manager at Deloitte for a couple of years. Then he founded his first very successful company, Palas Ludens. In 2014, he sold it, already dealing with machine learning topics. And Jonas then spent 3 years at Apple, where he was a senior research R&D engineering manager, also working on machine learning. topics. And now Aleph Alpha is in full swing, also participating in our new German project, OpenGPTX. I invited Jonas a while ago, but then it already turned out that he had a conflict. Yeah, so actually he's in Berlin right now, speaking at a conference on AI-related topics, but he was kind enough to record his speech. We will play the video. It's 23, 24 minutes or so. So I hope this will work out technically. Just a second. And I'm sure there he is. Jonas, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. Today, I want to show you some of our thoughts and results on how AI alignment relates to sovereignty, how these concepts of fairness and bias, how they can be interpreted in the context of increasingly powerful models. My name is Jonas. I'm the founder CEO of Aleph Alpha. I'm a serial entrepreneur and ex-Apple AI R&D leadership in their kind of special projects division. Why has AI been so kind of frustrating in the past often? And what I mean by that is that, of course, there's a big hype, there's a boom of AI systems, but when we then look closer, oftentimes they make mistakes that a human would never make, right? They make mistakes that seem odd and weird from our perspective. Why is that happening? So the reason for that is that the current AI revolution is built on supervised data. And what that means is that it requires, every system that we're building requires a lot of training data. And this training data usually has been human labeled, human annotated, and the training data narrowly specifies the inputs and outputs of the system. Meaning that in this example, for example, we train a system that maps a camera image to the detection of a pedestrian, a bounding box around the pedestrian. Right? And not only is this slow and expensive and error-prone, it also significantly limits the capability of those models. Because these models trained like that, they will never be able to understand anything beyond what they have been trained on. Like, this model can never learn anything about the world that is not directly related to the question whether something is a pedestrian or not. So, but one of the big advantages these models have, the supervised models, is that I can get a pretty good handle on fairness. So in this example for here, if I say that my goal is for the model to be equally as performant for all genders and races and age brackets, then that's kind of easy, right? I just have to label these criteria. I have to have a signal for sex and age and race. And then I can measure the performance of the model on each individual subset. So like it has been done here in this paper. And then I can easily correct for things. So if I, for example, here find that the model is not that great for Asian teenagers, and I want the model to also be working very well on that subset, then I can add more data, or I can weigh the data that I already have differently. However, the world is too complex to really break it down into categories. And this is a funny video. You see that here it seems like there are two like cyclists or like motorbike riders. And in fact, it's a horse carriage, right? And this is still like a relatively straightforward example. When we go into these world models, these super powerful models that we'll see later on, their function and their goal is somewhat unspecified. They can react to all situations that we can phrase with language or even in a multimodal space. So with these models that can basically do everything we can describe in language, it is impossible to have narrowly defined categories that we can then split down and measure its performance. All right, so and here are some examples where this breaks down in the world. So this is kind of an RFP that looks like a human, right? So if you're a pedestrian classifier, if you're a human classifier, I would fire on that. Would that be wrong or right? Same goes for these full-sized ad. Somebody's printed there. The reflection of a pedestrian on a window, right? Is that a pedestrian or not? And yeah, I have no idea what this person is doing, but yeah, nevertheless, it is somewhat of a pedestrian, but maybe not really. With any of those examples, what differentiates humans from these deep learning supervised systems is that humans would not make any mistakes. So if we would see any of these observations, it would not cause us to cause an accident or do some driving mistake, because we are able to understand what's going on. How come? So on the right-hand side, there's this almost black image. Can you recognize what's on there? About half of people I'm asking can recognize that this is the Mona Lisa. And that's pretty remarkable, because there's almost no pixels there. It's almost completely black, and the pixels, they are there. They're, yeah, have a few colors, right? But it's surprising that we are able to recognize that. And the reason for that is that humans operate incredibly powerful world models. And these world models have learned a lot about the world and about patterns and about occurrences, and we can trigger them and use them basically intuitively. This is a little bit like what I'm imagining the fast thinking from Daniel Kahneman aspect of how the human brain works. And so intuitive understanding of things we already knew, of situations we are aware of. So dependencies and patterns are part of our world model. And I also think that this is a reason why kids want to watch the same show over and over, because we have a self-supervised loss function that is rewarding us for correctly predicting something, right? So, and that builds our world model. And world models are nothing new in the world of machine learning. So this is great work from 2016 from Schmidhuber and team. And so what they did is they built a world model for the game Doom. And here you can see in the middle in the set vector, the latent space representation that is basically encoding the learned world model. And then this kind of model has learned to understand all kinds of situations that can happen in the game of Doom. And this is another cool work that basically takes it a step further and gives the agent only limited access to the observation. So here in this video, only when the red border is visible does the agent actually see its surroundings. Nevertheless, it is somewhat capable of learning a world model and navigating the car here in this racing game through the world. Right, so these kind of works have shown that world models that learn a world and its rules are useful for agents, for playing video games, for navigating in complex scenarios. So these cubes, they're not moving. The icons in the middle change, but the cubes itself don't move. And of course, this is just one of many, many optical illusions that give the impression that change is happening, movement is happening, although it is not. And the reason why I'm showing that, and the reason why this actually is happening, also has a lot to do with our world models. So looking into neuroscience and research there, I found this article will be quite fascinating. And in here, the authors say that our brain, our perception is not really raw sensory information, but it is the brain uses prior knowledge of the world to make inferences or generate hypotheses about the cause of incoming sensory information. So the brain is much more a prediction machine based on learned patterns. And of course, this is precisely what a world model also does. So we now see these large language and multimodal models kind of ruling the world. And these behave exactly like world models would. These models are trained by letting the model complete any cut of text. That's called decoder style learning. But this is precisely what a world model does. It understands patterns and it is able to predict the future. You know, we're here the future as like predict text that's coming. But this is, of course, in order to do this well, the model needs to understand all the meaning and all the context that is in human text. And so being absolutely impressed by GPT-3 when it came out, I decided to basically start Aleph Alpha on that premise, following GPT-2 and GPT-3 and building these new generalizable AI systems here in Germany and for Europe. And so that's kind of what we did. That was the first step. We built a world model very similar to GPT-3. We call Luminous. With the only difference being that it is natively trained on 5 big European languages. So it's natively a multimodal model. And we built our own code base for that. OpenAI is somewhat vague about some of the details they're training their models with. So we kind of had to build the architecture ourselves. And recently we were able to do something where we took it a step further. This is here where Heise is claiming we surpassed GPT-3, and to some extent that's fair to say, where we added full multimodal capabilities to this model. So the prompt, the context that the model is looking at can be any combination of images or text. So comparing our model against the state of the art of what's going on. So this is Palm from Google, an incredible model that's able to explain jokes. And this is on a joke that is a non-joke in a sense, right? Where the joke is, what is the difference between a zebra and an umbrella? One is striped animal related to horses. Another is a device you can use to stop the rain from falling on you. And then Palm is able to explain that joke and say, the joke is an anti-joke. The joke is what the answer is obvious. And the joke is that you were expecting a funny answer. And this is phenomenal. Palm has these results. And I've also put the same question basically into Luminous. And the answer here is, this joke is about the difference between a zebra and an umbrella. The speaker compares them to each other in order for us, the audience, to understand that they are very different things, even though we might not think so at first glance. So I think this is slightly, and of course we compared a bunch of those. This is not as nuanced. This is not as spot on as what Palm's doing. And of course, to be fair, Palm has a bunch of more parameters. But our model then is a full multi-language model. So this is an experiment that here Silke Hahn did, where she prompted the model to write a letter from Goethe to Schiller. And that kind of works out all right. Here it says, Freund, ich habe mir erlaubt, Ihnen zu schreiben und Sie um die Meinung über die Werbung im Fernsehen anzufragen. Ich bin nämlich der Ansicht, dass die Art von Reklame nicht nur unmoralisch ist, sondern auch den Geist des Publikums verdirbt, which I think is a quite fitting remark. And of course, our model can do things that GPT-3 can do as well. So here's an example where you can basically solve something that engineers, researchers have been trying to solve for years and decades. very naively here a conversation. So this is a news report about OpenGPTX, the Gaia X project we're part of. And what I'm doing is I'm just writing here a prompt saying, this is a conversation with the AI. And that's basically it. And then everything that is here with colorful background has been generated by our model. And then I can basically have a conversation. I can say, I have like questions for OpenGPTX, and then the model says, sure, what do you want to know? And then I say, what is done there? And this, if you've worked on conversational agents, this is, again, like, this is super difficult to do because it is referential, right? It is, I'm continuing a conversation, but this is basically what this model does for free. The answer is, that's a language model. You can ask questions and the language model answers. And I like to make it a step harder even, I can then ask, isn't there something like that in the US? And then the answer is yeah, but the big difference between GPT-3 and OpenGPTX is GPT-3 is closed source and OpenGPTX is open for everybody. So this is incredible in a sense, right? That it fits to the style of the language, it answers on point, and it uses information for that it wasn't trained on. It has just read this information. Our model is multimodal as well as multi-language. So here are some examples what that means. On the left-hand side, I have this fish with a shot-in set of teeth, and basically prompting with une photo de, I'm getting a correct result with présent avec les dents à la place de museau. And this is perfect, right? This is even better than what I get in English for this picture here. I can also ask questions about a text. And this is the cool thing about the multi-language model, is that this is a French text. And now I'm asking a question about the content of the French text in English, and I'm getting an English answer. So this is true multimodality at work. And of course, we also have built is a summarization function. So you can summarize longer texts into a short description of their content. And of course, also that works in all languages. All right, so what does that have to do with kind of fairness and bias? So when you look at what these models can do, it is far beyond pure language capabilities. They carry a lot of information that is highly relevant to our ethics and to our culture, basically. So here asking, prompting with overrepresented in German prisons are, I'm getting like answers that kind of correctly tell me that it's young men and that are overrepresented. So what you can see here is basically a pop-up that gives you the probability distribution of potential next tokens. So what is happening here, and how does that relate to the sovereignty and also to our European training? So this example shows why this is important. Here I'm asking Luminous in German and in French about its favorite sports teams. And I'm getting here Bayern Munich and Olympique Marseille as the result, respectively. And of course, this makes sense. So the model kind of uses the language it's being asked in as a bias, as a prior to kind of say, yeah, the German-speaking person is probably a fan of a German team, and the French-speaking person is fan of a French team, right? So that makes sense. But when I ask GPT-3 in German, I'm getting the New York Giants as a result, right? So this shows that even if like there is some German capabilities of GPT-3, it clearly shows that it has been trained on a data set that is mostly English and US-centric, right? So this is why it is very important to look at these things from a European perspective. And of course, we're not the only people doing that. There's European language equality and European language grid, as some of the projects are looking at that as well, right? So because with the increasing capability of these models, they carry a lot more content and quote unquote understanding than just language, right? And it wouldn't be sufficient to just translate things going in and out of GPT-3. So let's look at some of the things that go kind of beyond keyword detection, beyond classical supervised classification, right? So what you'll see now is some prompts from our multimodal model. So here, it's always an image and a short prompt, and then the green text is the completion of the model. So here, in this case, this would not have happened if the car had a keyless ignition system. I like this image because it's funny, and the truck is a perfect target for the flames. I like this image because it shows the lack of privacy in the apartment building. So here we have two trucks driving behind each other, and the first truck is full of pallets. And the second one driving behind them has a sticker, "Pallets Wanted," on the back. And here prompted with, I like this image because the result is it shows the irony of the situation. A truck driver trying to get his pallet business back on track. This maybe happened because the seagulls are not happy with the new rules. And here, OMG, look at this image, a wood slice with a cute face on it. So this is super interesting because in all those examples, we see that it seems to have a very similar world understanding and world model than we humans have. And this is surprising, right? Because as long as I've been working in the field and building AI systems, things like that were never possible. And our multimodal model can do even things like beyond that. So here we are showing it a segment of a hand-drawn treasure map and asking the treasure is buried, and the result is in the old oak tree. So it does implicit OCR, and it also has so much world understanding that it knows the red X, that is where the treasure is. And the same goes for architecture diagrams. So here I'm using QA patterns and asking which Oracle services are available. And the answer is Oracle Database Web Application Firewall. Right? So this is also, again, pretty remarkable. I remember just a year ago, basically, for the Hateful Memes Challenge, what the teams were doing is building OCR systems and then feeding the result of these OCR systems in a language model. And in addition to that, using computer vision on the image part. So this is unnecessary, right? So we can basically do it all at once. And DeepMind recently then did something amazing. They published Flamingo, and Flamingo is a multimodal model that can carry a conversation. So you can basically prompt an image and then you can ask questions, and basically combining everything we've seen so far, combining the multimodal capability, combining the conversational capability. So here it knows that this is a bowl of soup with a monster face on it. And when we're asking our model, and we're asking Luminous about that, yeah, we're getting similar results, photo of a bowl with a crazy monster face on it. And of course, this is, of course, DeepMind is mentioning Magma as prior work, right? And of course, the internet agrees that they're very similar, right? And of course, this is not surprising, right? We are all kind of building on each other's ideas. So what's missing here? We've seen amazing capabilities, basically driven by world knowledge, world understanding. They're everything from like funny to precise. But all those examples were basically great world model system one performances, where there's a pattern understanding, there's a understanding of interdependencies in the language domain. However, these models are horrible at logical conceptual thinking. They sometimes get it right, and you could argue whether by accident or that they just like memorize something. But generally speaking, the system 2 thinking, the logical compute basically that we're able to do, this is something that is still absent, and there's a lot of debate about how to get there and whether deep learning can play a key role here. And of course, we're working on something in the field I think almost everybody is doing. So we've seen what world models can do, and basically when we look at all these models, the key ingredient that was making these different from the models we had 3 years ago is scale. Of course, there's a lot of like tricks and details that we tuned, but basically what happened here is that these models are just self-supervised systems. You throw a bunch of data at them, and then you give them a lot of parameters. And so this is, again, an aspect of these models that are making them challenging, because you need to have the engineering know-how to work at that scale, and you need to have the resources to do that. And this is, of course, also where OpenGPTX is doing a great job at making this available and working together to gain experience and build a tech basis that's able to do this. And here on this chart, you see the amount of compute put into new AI models in the respective years, and this is a logarithmic scale. So every tick here is 100 times the compute. So this is quite exciting, and of course it's not clear when the scale up will end. As of now, there's no clear end in sight. And to make this possible, and also with the thought of technological sovereignty, we build our own data center. So this is 512 A100, one of the biggest clusters in the world. I think we're number 65 on all supercomputers, and we're doing this to help build the foundation of a new industrial revolution and to support academic and entrepreneurial development. Right, so we're always looking for partners, academic and entrepreneurial, and we're trying to build a technological foundation that is helping us to stay sovereign in this new era. Yeah, thanks for listening. If you have any follow-up questions, or if you want to have an idea for a collaboration, we're always happy about that. Feel free to contact us, and I'd love to chat.
Great. Thank you, Jonas. It's unfortunate that he can't be here today. He would have loved to, but he had this prior commitment, and I'm happy that he recorded the talk. And maybe some other time there will be opportunity for questions. Good. Let's go back to ELG. Here we go. Yes. So next up, I just need to resize my screen here. That's better. Next up, we will do 3 15-minute presentations, and we will look into various areas of ELG. First of all, I will start with a brief general overview where we currently stand towards the end of the project. After that, Stelios Piparidis will introduce the current state of the ELG platform as such, and then finally Kalina Boncheva will talk about the current state of play in terms of data sets and resources and services and tools and what have you available in ELG. So quick recap, the objectives, of course, of ELG. Main objective is to establish ELG as a cloud platform, as the primary language technology platform and marketplace in Europe to tackle the fragmentation of the European landscape, to make available commercial and non-commercial industry-related technologies, both functional and non-functional. We want to enable the whole community, the whole European LT community and NLP community and adjacent communities to upload services and data sets, to download them, to use them, and to deploy them right from the ELG cloud platform. With a number of additional objectives like enable businesses to grow up, to speed things up, to make things more efficient, and to unleash enormous potential for innovation. Yeah, the pink arrow is indicating where we are at the end of the project. So all of the things are behind us now. Most of them. There's one thing that is still pending. I will talk about this later today. So what is ELG in a nutshell? This is the cloud platform, also the initiative, the participants, and so on. We want to enable both companies and academic organizations, research centers, and so on to make their own outputs, their own services, data sets, resources that they develop. Yeah, the European language technology developers, we want to enable them to upload and to share their resources, their outputs through ELG. In total, that's a number of about 1,750 to 2,000 organizations in Europe. Yeah, they develop, let's generalize, they develop tools, they develop data, and we want to enable them to make them available through ELG. On the other side, we have other users of language technologies. We have companies, we have NGOs, we have public administrations, we have also, again, research centers, universities, and so on, that may need language technologies, that want to buy them, that want to integrate them. Maybe they want to test them, test drive them a little bit. Yeah, so they want to discover them. They need to be able to discover these in the first place, then test them, integrate them, use them. And this is the set of users and consumers of language technologies. Of course, that's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of organizations throughout Europe. Yeah, so we want to enable them to discover, download, purchase, use, and so on these technologies. ELG is also collecting metadata, collecting other resources from other repositories by harvesting metadata records. That's how it works technically. So we harvest many relevant repositories on a regular basis. We collect new resources that they make available on their own repositories and ingest these metadata records into our own system so that they can be discovered through ELG. Maybe there's a small repository somewhere, we crawl it, we harvest it, and maybe there's a relevant resource sitting in that little repository that many people maybe don't know. And then through ELG as a one-stop shop, we enable discovery of resources. So European Language Grid is a joint technology platform for the whole European language technology community. It's also a joint tool and resource sharing platform. It's a language data space in a way. It's a marketplace for the whole European language technology community, especially the industry side of things here. And it's also a community. The participants in this initiative is a community of European language technology developers. In a way, it's also the yellow pages, because we have this long list of organizations active in this space. It's the yellow pages of the European LT landscape. And through ELG, we want to make available all these different European language technologies and resources in a one-stop shop. Let's look at some numbers right now. Without the organizations, we have more than 12,000 resources already in the catalog. That's more than 6,000 corpora and data sets, more than 3,000 services and tools. About 1,000 of those can be tested and used right away from European Language Grid, from the cloud platform. How this works will be then demonstrated in the next session. And top right of the slide, you can see the different sources and repositories that we harvest on a regular basis from where we take on board resources. We just last week, we published the new version of the website. It's now ELG release 3 is available online with a new version of the landing page of the homepage, where you have some basic statistics and where you can check what is new, what is important. And we also have a new version of the main navigation bar. What is coming up, that's not online just yet, but we are working on this, is a list of 600 and something 650 or so projects that have contributed to the development of these different resources so that we can link up research projects to their outputs. Our stakeholders, I think this is a slide that I can skip, companies that develop, integrate purchase language technologies, and universities and research centers that do the same, that also develop or use language technologies, plus public administrations, other organizations, and also funding agencies. We've done many, many collaborations throughout the 3.5 years. First of all, with the 32 ELG national competence centers, many of which are here today. I'm happy about that. The ELG open calls produced 15 very, very interesting pilot projects, all successfully concluded by now. Of course, we collaborate very, very intensely and nicely with ELE, with the European AI on Demand platform, with various data spaces and research data initiatives, and many other projects. Just very briefly, the open calls, completely finished by now, all projects concluded. Almost all of the results are available through ELG now. In total, we received more than 200 proposals for pilot projects. These 15 were selected in a competitive process driven by, I think more than 300 evaluators. And that was a very interesting exercise. And these will also be all featured in the ELG book, but more on the ELG book later today. Some more numbers. This is speaking about inequality. Yeah, so this is the inequality in the European LT landscape, with most of the participants in the UK, many participants in Germany and Spain and Poland. And then we have the usual long tail, as usual in Europe, with other organizations in the other countries. Number of resources over time. Yeah, so as I said, with the organizations, we are at more than 14,000. By now, we can drill down into the different resource types shown here. And I think when we started the project, no one of us thought that we would even reach 5 figures in that regard. Yeah, so we are all very, very excited that this is really, really taken off. Some more numbers and stats here. The number of users of ELG, it's also going up regularly. By now, I'm happy to report that we have 750 users already, and this is a combination of ELG users and ELG provider users. Yeah, so those users that provide technologies. This is also a fantastic number that I'm really excited about. Yeah, another number, another slide rather, that I'm not so excited about, because speaking about inequality, this is just the languages of the resources that we can look into. And it shows that we are very, very clearly far away from digital language equality in Europe. Most of the resources deal with English or have English content, and then Spanish, French, German, and so on. And I cropped out the long tail of, I think, hundreds of additional languages. And more on this tomorrow. Yeah, this is just a very brief sneak peek what we will show to you tomorrow in ELE, in the ELE day of the conference. And with this, I would like to conclude and invite Stelios Piperidis to give a deep dive on the platform. Stelios, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Georg. Good morning, everyone. I'm really so happy to see old friends and faces after 2 years physically. It's really very important to get together. So as Georg said, I will just say a few words about the ELG platform and its architecture, the services that it makes available for the language technology consumers, equally well for the language technology providers. But I would like also to stick a bit more this time on how we position in ELG in the wider LT and AI ecosystem. This is a slide you've seen many times so far. At least it is. It has been presented consistently since the first Meta Forum. So this is the architecture that we have implemented in ELG. It is a three-layered architecture, and as you see here, we have the base infrastructure, which is the ELG cloud computing infrastructure, together with the storage facilities. In the middle, we have the backend taking care of all the databases, repositories, catalogs, etc., as well as the LT, and very critically importantly, the LT service execution orchestrator. And on the top, we have the front end exposing various functionalities to both providers and consumers. What is important is that the platform itself has been built with a robust, scalable, reliable, and widely used technology. So we expect that we will not have, or at least so we believe, really huge problems in maintaining the individual technologies. As it has been stressed a number of times, everything, all the language technology services that are made available through ELG, but as well as the ELG platform components, are available as Docker containers, which are orchestrated by Kubernetes, thus somehow ensuring the scalability that is necessary with the growing demand and supply of resources. We also believe, and it has so much proved to be the case, also through the pilot projects, but also the collaboration with other infrastructures, that the architecture that has been implemented is quite flexible, allowing for integration of new functionalities in quite some short time. Last but not least, both the architecture but also the data models underlying it provide the foundations of what we would like to believe are interoperable data and services spaces, something that has proved quite important and has been, let's say, been in quest for the last couple of years. The ELG data consumers can search and browse the ELG catalog. This is yet again a slide. A majority of its bullets have already been presented several times, but there is some new stuff as well. So they can search and browse the ELG catalog for different types of language processing services and data for related projects and organizations. One can use simple but also advanced free text search. There is a new, let's say, generation of facets that are made available in release 3. Some that we observed were not that useful or were a bit confusing have been removed. Some new have been introduced. So now one can use facets for resource type, language service function, media type, conditions of use, whether a data set or a service is actually hosted in ELG or it is just remotely called. The license of a particular asset, its related entities, as well as the source. We would like to recognize the source, the source repository, the source platform, the source infrastructure from which we have harvested a particular record, or even the data accompanying the record. ELG consumers can also view detailed information on landing pages. The landing pages have also been revamped. They can view statistics of the number of views and downloads, especially for ELG hosted services. They can download data in accordance with licensing terms. They can export metadata records in multiple formats, and they can view which data sets they have downloaded, they themselves, right, the consumers, their versions, and so on and so forth. Consumers of ELG services can try out and test language processing services. Currently, we have APIs for, let's say, these abstract classes: information extraction and annotation for text and speech, text-to-speech, text-to-text generation, including, this is a superclass, including machine translation and summarization, classification for text and speech, speech recognition, speech synthesis, and image recognition. The services can be called from the command line directly through a REST API, and they can be integrated in any sort of workflow. They can also be accessed through a Python-based API. Likewise, data sets can be accessed, can be searched and discovered through a Python-based API, fetched, downloaded, and fed into a training pipeline directly. Through the consumer's grid, which is again a new functionality in the latest release, release 3 of ELG, consumers can get an overview of their daily usage, their quotas, their downloads, and so on and so forth. Let's go to providers. Providers can register and get authenticated as such, so that, let's say, their input is trusted, ensuring trustability. And they can document their assets by providing formal description, metadata descriptions of various LRTs, okay, data and services, the agents participating in the LRT production or distribution, organizations, projects, and so on and so forth. All this information is linked together in a sort of a graph. From release 3 onwards, all data sets and services get a persistent identifier, a DOI. And from release 3 onwards, providers can provide new versions of a data set or a tool or service. As it has been stressed a number of times in the past, there is a rather rich and rigorous metadata model that underlies all the operations. The picture on the slide reminds of its origin. So it is an application profile of the MetaShare metadata model, appropriately extended and adapted, also complying with the FAIR principles, which are so important today. Using this schema, providers can create new asset descriptions by uploading and validating a schema-compliant metadata record, single or batch. So you can upload a number of metadata records in one go. Or if you are documenting a resource from scratch, you can use what we need to believe an intelligent interactive metadata editor. Providers are assisted by a rigorous publication process. So we're pretty serious with what we're doing with the publication of data and services. We're assisting the providers, but we're also a bit, let's say, strict with certain mandatory pieces of information that we believe are sine qua non for the whole process. It is through this ELG publication lifecycle that providers are assisted in also managing the descriptions of their assets, uploading and managing files, replacing files, deleting files, etc. And as I said before, they can also create new versions. They can copy records, but they can also export records in multiple formats. Now one can export in DataSite, DCAT, RDF, XML, to name the most usable ones. A few details on service provision, although there has been no change on this dimension. LT service providers need to provide a Docker image with their LT tool or service. Docker images have to be uploaded to a Docker registry. And as has always been the case, there are two different options for providing language technology services. Either you can host them, you can upload and host them and run them in ELG, or the language technology tool can run outside the ELG with the precondition that a proxy image with one or more ELG compliant endpoints exists. Various ELG support services So we've also been quite let's say pedantic with the documentation of the whole thing, and we expect we've documented everything as accurately and as appropriately, but please come back to us if you feel that something is missing. The schema is detailed, is documented in every detail. And there are a couple of, let's say, communication channels through which you can start firing questions to us. This is a slide that I have also used 2 or 3 times in the past, but I was using present continuous in the first bullet. ELG is building bridges, but now we are happy, let's say, to say that we have built bridges to existing platforms and infrastructures, mainly in terms of metadata-based descriptions, based on a number of strategies, open protocols or APIs, but also we have used ELG as the infrastructure arm for the European Language Equality project that we'll devote tomorrow on it. Now, this is a slide that has some interest. I will be diving into it also tomorrow, but what are the 3 panels, let's say here? The first panel is a panel of communication protocols between existing, well-established, very important infrastructures or parts of infrastructures, like the Clarin infrastructure, and in particular 3 key repositories of the Clarin infrastructure: the Lindat Clarin repository, the Clarin Slovenia repository, and the Clarin Poland repository. And the 4th down there is the ELRC share repository. It proved feasible to make the connection on the grounds of the Clarin affiliated repositories exporting MetaShare compliant metadata and ELRC being based on MetaShare, essentially deploying a metadata model that is an application profile of MetaShare. So all these somehow enabled us to set up a fully automatic process that is running on these 4 repositories every Sunday. So every Sunday, the number of records and the amount of information about language technology related data sets and services is increasing. This is an interesting case. This is the collaboration between ELG and Hugging Face. Hugging Face exposes data sets, but also models. And for the time being, it has proved feasible to concentrate on data sets, but there we realized that ELG was a bit more information greedy than Hugging Face is, although in recent discussions, it proves that we can move together with Hugging Face in an enrichment, let's say, direction. So this panel here, we concentrated mostly on enriching as automatically as possible the metadata descriptions so that they could fit in the obligatory elements of the ELG model. And the last panel there is almost an inverse case. This is Zenodo. Zenodo is a generic repository with with users that are not necessarily interested only in language technology. So there, the main thing is the filtering necessity, the filtering requirement. So there, we had to develop models, classification models, but we also had to develop some sort of technology that and mechanisms, let's say, that would valorize the different communication methods that Zenodo exposes, and then filter the metadata so that we can then ingest the filter metadata into the ELG metadata database. All in all, I dare say that this was a particularly interesting and very, very revealing exercise of what happens in the different platforms and infrastructures in Europe. Many lessons learned that we can discuss. Now, all this powers the so-called Ele Dashboard, which you may have already seen. If you just scroll a bit from, down from the first page of ELG, if you scroll a bit down, you will see visit the Ele Dashboard. So the Ele Dashboard that somehow presents this facet of ELG, that of the living dynamic language technology observatory. But more on this tomorrow, and until then, I pass on the floor to Kalina to tell us a bit more about the data and services that are available on ELG right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Stelios, and great to see you all here today. So I will give you a little bit more details about the what's actually in the European language grid, and more specifically the release 3 that, as Georg mentioned, was done about a week ago and is now live. So as of June this year, we have close to 2,000 European language grid compatible services. And specifically, the number is 1,959. So the way to think about this is that you may have actually one Docker container, but that may provide different functionalities. So in some ways, you may get slightly different numbers depending on how you look at them in the platform. The majority of those are language specific, so for individual languages, and I'll delve into that in a moment. And then we have about 220 of those which are language independent. As Stelios already mentioned, we have APIs for the various types of services, like the speech recognition, text analytics, machine translation, and so on. In terms of language coverage, just to give you a little bit more detail there, all the 24 European official EU languages are covered by services, and also many, many more. So we have also services covering 24 other languages spoken in the EU and 69 additional languages with important trade partners such as China and so on. So for the EU languages specifically, you can see the numbers there. The vast majority of them are about machine translation services. And then the next one is text analytics services, so such as information extraction or basic text processing, like part of speech tagging as well. The rest are other kinds of services, like text to speech and so on. There's 198 services for other languages spoken in the EU. And again, around half of them are machine translation and 88 of them are text analytics, with the rest being, again, different variety of services. And then we have 412 services for other languages. But here what we observe is quite interesting, that more than half of them are this time about text analytics, and only 86 of them are about machine translation. So we see the difference in distribution there. And again, the rest of the numbers are different ones. And you will see a demo of these services actually a bit later. So I won't go into depth on that. As Georg mentioned as well, we've also had a number of pilot projects that provided both services and resources to the European language grid. And specifically here, I'll zoom in on some that the services that we acquired through these projects. And these include over 100 machine translation language pairs from Opus MT. This work on clinical named entity recognition in 5 languages, some terminology extraction services, and most recently from the latest pilots, things like multilingual word census ambiguation, semantic role labeling, and so on. This also sign language explanations, which was very, very interesting as well. But you can also see the broad coverage, like the multilingual word census ambiguation, that's around 100 languages in terms of coverage. So it's we're starting to make some sort of concrete steps towards improving this balance that Jörg already showed in his slide of predominance of English. From elsewhere, we have some services, and I'd like to invite you to find out more about them by attending session 3 later today, where there will be some details and information and hopefully demos as well. Number of them are about machine translation, and there's also some text-to-speech that will be demonstrated in session 3, speech recognition as well, and some collection of information extraction services, linguistic pre-processing, and some machine translation as well. So there's quite a wide variety there that you'll be able to see. So I will delve a little bit more into the language resources aspect as well. So Stelios already describes in quite depth how we managed to collect and harvest this metadata from a number of repositories. So I will not go into detail on that here. And as he already mentioned, some of the metadata was imported automatically, but some manual corrections were also required. And here you can see some screenshots of how it looks when you start browsing these resources on the European Language Grid. So some statistics to give you a flavor from the different sources and the kinds of resources that we have. So we have Corpora. This is the vast majority of language resources in ELG, and they come from a variety of repositories, as you can see there. ELRA, ELRC Share, and the EOG itself are kind of some of the main providers, but we also have resources now from Clarin and Lindat, as well as Hugging Face, as already mentioned, and Zenodo, as well as other places. There's also lexical resources, which the vast majority of them, again, come from EOG and ELE, as well as ELRA, and some from Zenodo is the third contributing repository in terms of sizes. And then there's some computational models and grammars, but this is a smaller part of the linguistic resources, the language resources that we currently have. So yeah, you can see the totals as they currently stand in early June 2022. And as Stelios said, they are continuously improving over time and growing on a weekly basis. There are some data sets that are hosted on EOG natively for direct download. Examples of those include pilot projects, and you will see a very good example of that in session 3 from one of the pilots in the second round of pilots we had. But here are some of the other examples such as the European Clinical Case Corpus or the Turco Paraphrase Corpus. And you can see the metadata, sizes, how to download it, and other details, and specifically also the licensing agreements. And then we also have other types of language resources which are more unusual. And for those of you who participated in previous Metaforum, you may have come across the demo of the Corian Sparkle endpoint, and it provides basically the pilot with Corian integrated Sparkle endpoints and made them curable via the European language grid. So you can investigate Saurai, for example. So it's a different way of accessing the data, which is more suited to this kind of resource. And again, you have APIs that you can use that, and here's some examples as well. So in terms of the current state, we have, as we said, all of these repositories, and we do have a challenge of how to harvest data from there. We're continuously working on improving the quality in that regard. There's also issues that had to be solved around duplication, reuse, and updates. So how to continuously update the repositories, how to deduplicate, because some resources may appear in more than one repository, and so on. And there's, of course, the legal issues, and I think we'll come to that a little bit later as well in some more depth. But in general, the European Language Grid is a complex platform, and we need to monitor it for GDPR compliance, in amongst other things, and have dedicated data management plans. There's many different licenses that we encountered as part of the integration of these different services and data sets. And so we had to work on harmonizing those where possible, and also associating them clearly with when the metadata is imported into the European Language Grid, so in order to improve the search functionality. So I think at this point I need to hand over to Jörg. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kalina, and also Stelios. So I don't want to spend time on this slide, actually, but more on this slide. So you've seen the broad overview now. We went a bit deeper into the platform, into the services, the resources. And next up, after the coffee break, we will go down even deeper. Yeah, almost a behind the scenes look, behind the curtains, where colleagues from the technical ELG team will provide a tutorial how to provide resources. They will talk about the metadata system once again. You will get some actual demos how to put together a small application using ELG services. I guess this will be very interesting for all practitioners. And then immediately after, we will have the best of ELG session, of course, best of ELG in quotes. Yeah, so there are many things we could have picked, and it was more or less a random selection of services and tools that we wanted to highlight in this session then before the lunch break. So next up, 30 minutes of coffee break. And a quick announcement for those joining online. We have to quickly terminate the Zoom session, because apparently the sound is all right now, but the picture quality is not as good as we would like it to be. So they will try to optimize the Zoom settings, and then you can reconnect as soon as that's done. It will only take a couple of minutes. Okay, thanks so much again. Also to Stelios and to Kalina, to Jonas, of course, and then see you in half an hour for the next session. Thanks.